Federation.
I would lease them facilities and they could achieve what I'd, in a sense, been unsuccessful in achieving, namely training a workforce.
On the 7th of April 1998, at 11 p.m, Chris Corrigan executed his plan. He ordered security guards with dogs onto the docks and sacked the union workforce, 1,400 people across the country. They were locked out and replaced with non-union labour.
The dogs were my idea because at the end of the day, I absolutely knew that these people, if they were allowed to stay there for very long, they would set about vandalising the equipment. If they vandalised the equipment, the waterfront would be shut down for months.
We were satisfied and were given assurances that it was legal, what was going to be done. We knew it was direct. We knew it was going to cause a lot of skin and hair to fly.
My memory of it is I didn't even know until right at the moment, basically. Literally at the moment. I can't even remember what time of the day that was now.
But if Peter Reith can't recall, events of the night tell another story. At 11 p.m, exactly the same time security guards entered the docks, his staff issued a press release. The government would provide $250 million to pay all sacked workers. The battle was now on. For the next few months, Australia's waterfront became the focus of a bitter and violent struggle.
Has there ever been a genuine, decent, biffo on the waterfront when there hasn't been a lot of emotion and a lot of aggression and where it hasn't been tough for both sides? So you could say, well, the government took a beating. Well, every government's taken a beating in the past on waterfront reform. We took a bit more beating than usual, but then again, we're the only ones who ever got anything done either.
The MUA took the fight all the way to the High Court in an attempt to have their workers reinstated by Patrick's. In time, they would win the court battle and many were re-employed, but only after signing new productivity agreements in line with Chris Corrigan's original demands.
It's one of those great things where everybody claims victory. The Maritime Union preserved a near monopoly of their domination of the waterfront. We got significant increases in profitability. I look back with tremendous pride and just say, we achieved far more than, frankly, I would have hoped to have got.
Chris Corrigan would celebrate, but Peter Reith felt under siege, believing his cabinet colleagues had abandoned him.
Quite frankly, half the rest of the team, you never heard from them anyway, and I was pretty isolated, I don't mind telling you, but I only had the one bloke really on side, and he was the only one I really needed.
Let me say this, that it would have been very helpful if a number of senior cabinet ministers at the time had come out and supported him.
A beleaguered Peter Reith visited the Prime Minister at Kirribilli.
Look, here are the options. You could get rid of me.
And I said, no, under no circumstances. See it through, you're doing it well, and you have my total support.
I'll tell you what he said to me. He said, oh, my kids think you're great, which, it's a sort of a more emotional way of saying, I'm still supporting you, because when John Howard says his kids support you, well, you got Jeanette as well. I mean, that's pretty good.
Never ever, never ever, never ever, ever, never ever, ever.
Morning, Mr. Howard.
G'day, Andrew.
How are you, Will?
John Howard was changing the country.
You're like quite a celebrity, Mr. Howard.
But by the middle of his first term, the electorate was turning away from John Howard.
Good to see you. All the best.
the Prime Minister had to woo the voters back.
What are you doing to our country, John? Very un-Australian.
Nice to see you. How are you, mate?
I made the observation to a friend and colleague at the time that it took the Liberal Party 13 years to work out how to get into government. And I hope that it didn't take them 13 years to work out how to govern, because they didn't have that amount of time.
Hello, Mr Prime Minister.
How are you, Loretta?
Well, I'm fine, thank you, and I'm a former total Liberal supporter of yours. I hate to say I'm not anymore.
Why's that?
What John Howard needed was a cause to champion. What he chose would shock his party.
We have a tax system that discourages savings. In a word, our tax system is holding us back.
It was the never-ever GST.
He felt there had to be change to the tax system. But there was no great discussion about this. There was no great plan. Hey, fellows, if we do a GST and whatnot, what will that mean? Let's have the bureaucracy work on it, all of that sort of stuff. Because the minute you start doing that, those sort of things like...
There's no doubt that at some stage, sooner or later, we will have to reform the Australian taxation system.
Does that include revisiting the GST?
Well, you can't have a reform unless you look at all of the options. Now,
I will never forget the moment I listened to the Prime Minister on Sunday television announcing that we're about to embark upon a new tax system underpinned by a GST. I suspect at that moment that the expletive that came out of my mouth came out of the mouth of many colleagues around Australia, and I remember saying to my wife when I finally composed myself, fasten your seatbelt, we're in for a rough ride.
I want to share this great adventure with the Australian. I was arguing for something that I believed in, and that is tremendously important in politics. If you've really got something to hang on to and to fight for and argue for, the conviction comes through.
Hello there. Leslie? Good afternoon.
It changed his body language overnight. You know, from someone looking defensive, uncertain, all of a sudden he was a man who had got back into his stride.
Sure.
With a 45-seat majority, this would be the Prime Minister's best chance to get his tax reform through.
Arthur Sinodinos, my Chief of Staff, often used the expression that this was like having an 800-pound gorilla loose in an election campaign.
And he said, Gazard, we've taken a boat, we've sailed it down the coast of Africa, we've gone into the jungle, we've pulled out the meanest, nastiest gorilla we could find, sailed back to Australia and let it loose on the streets.
It was Peter Costello's job to tame the beast.
And then we embarked on setting up a group that would start drawing the tax plan. We put them in a separate building and we locked them up. We gave them separate passes. Only people that were engaged on the tax plan were allowed into that building. They were not to talk to any of their colleagues in the Treasury.
Which was pretty well all-consuming, 7 days a week, 16 hours a day, non-stop. It was very complicated, and it was very, very difficult.
Finally, the Treasurer and his team signed off on the Coalition's tax reform package with a 10% GST. Peter Costello settled on a date for the big day, the 13th of August, 1998.
Just done a doorstop. Thanks.
Yeah, well, I fixed the date of the launch for the day before my birthday. And you know, this had killed me. This had absolutely killed me. I had done nothing else for over a year except pore over these numbers and these PowerPoints and these models. And I said to myself, I'm going to celebrate my birthday this year, so we're going to announce it on the 13th of August.
It was a big day, and Howard was there, Costello was there. I think Mrs. Howard was there at that one. So it was a big day for all of us.